Hello, everybody. I have the distinct privilege of having Dr. Marco Alvarenga on the podcast today. Welcome to the podcast, Doctor. Could you start by telling us a little bit about yourself and your current role?
Okay, first of all, I'd like to thank you very much for the opportunity to be here, talk with several people from the United States. I'm still in the United States, We are together in AP. I decided to stay here to visit some friends, and I'm still enjoying the United States. But I'm from Brazil, Brazilian, and I was born a long time ago, and I did my vet school at in Rio de Janeiro school. And when I finished my school, I went to do my residence at Botucatu. That's where I start the history of Botu. We are going to understand now why Botu, because the school where I'm working, I'm a professor in there since more than 30 years, and I did a residence in there, master and PhD. And the Botucatu is a city. That's a name. That's an Indian name that means good weather, and it's kind of Buenos Aires from Brazil. And it's a small town, it has 200,000 people, 150,000 people, but there's a good vet school, considered one of the best school from Brazil, from São Paulo State University. And that's why everything that we have, I'm a co-founder from Botufarma also. I'm very proud co-founder of Botufarma. Me and Professor Papa and another professor, Jose Delacqua, we decided to open this company just because we studied a lot of things related with semen and semen manipulation. And then when we start producing inside of the school, and people start to look for the standard. And because we have in Brazil the manga larga stallion, there's a stallion that's kind of complicated to freeze, to preserve semen. Then we start to develop this product in there. But before that, the most important moment of my life was when I went to Colorado State University to do my postdoc. I did a postdoc at Colorado State University in between 1997 and 2000. And there, I met very important people. One guy, that's Dr. Jim Grant. Dr. Jim Grant is a physiologist that understands everything about spermatozoa, the physiology of the sperm. And he's not a vet, but he started to teach me how important it's to understand the physiology, to understand what's happening with the spermatozoa inside of the uterus, and then the oviduct, and before the fertilization, during the fertilization, to develop better things to protect the sperm. Then that's basically my history.
Yeah, so I know we've had a conversation about, you're the first vet in your family. So can you explain how you ended up specializing, going from nobody in my family is a vet to being now one of the premier veterinarians that specializes in equine reproduction? How does that happen?
I don't know. It just happened, because I was living in a city that's the capital from Brazil. That's my father is a military from the army. Then we live in Brasilia. There's a capital from there. And then I hate to live in there. I was looking to live in Rio de Janeiro. And there was no vet school in Brasilia. And I liked animals. Okay. I was very young, just 17 years old, 18 years old. We start the university very early. And I was looking what I'm supposed to do. My family is just from physicians, a lot of human physicians. I don't like medical school. I like dogs. My grandfather used to have a lot of dogs, animal. His farm, a small farm, and some horses also. They were, okay, let's try to do that. Then I went to there. I think just more because I'd like to move myself to Rio than because of the vet school. And then the things start to happen, and I really liked the vet school, and I have a good opportunity to. My first contact really with vet was in the vet school. I never had contact with a vet before, but I was a lucky guy in my life, because I have several people that I met in my life that show me the best way to be where I am now.
Yeah, it's amazing how many people I've met that are currently working in the U.S. They are the lead repro vet at these farms, ranches, ICSI labs, everything. They all know you, and they all say, "Oh yeah, he was my professor." And so it's just amazing how many. Number one, how many Brazilian vets are here in the U.S. that work with the equine reproduction side. Now we could have another conversation of why Brazilians are so good at reproduction. But it's even more amazing that all of them know you. They know the Botufarma brand. So it's just a testament to you and the other founders of the company.
Yes, I always appreciate. I was a practitioner during 5 years, and I always appreciate to stay in contact, even the school, in contact with the vets, helping them and giving some short course in wet labs in the school. Always, we used to do 2 or 3 short courses a year. And now I'm retired myself from the university, but I still have a specialization course with equine reproduction specialization where I have around 80, 90 vets a year that stay with me and a group of vets, another professor, doing our online, and we have some presential also wet labs at each 3 months. People, even from the United States, they come to Brazil to do this course with me and other professor in Brazil. And I think just because I always try, and me and Professor Papa in the vet school, that's what is my boss, Professor Papa, we always were preoccupied in develop things that the vets what needed in Brazil or in other places of the world. That's our preoccupation. Ours to develop things that were practical and important for the vets for in that viewed situation, even breeders also.
Yeah,
That's
one
why
thing
I
that
know a lot of people.
yeah, speaking of knowing a lot of people, I think a lot of people rely on you. And you've told me a couple of times when a vet in the US has called you to say, "Hey, I need a vet. I need a good repro vet. Can you give me a referral to somebody?" I think 99% of the time you've got somebody that you can connect them with, or that they're already in the States that you also connect them to potentially take over their breeding program. So if anybody out there needs or has any questions, you can definitely reach out to Dr. Alvarenga, and he'll hook you up.
Okay, I can leave to you my email address or my WhatsApp. Brazilian, they use a lot of WhatsApp, even my Instagram or Facebook. Please, if you have any question, just I'll be very happy to answer you and to help you if
Perfect.
necessary.
Yep, and I'll link all of Dr. Alvarenga's contact information in the description. But speaking of questions, Dr. Alvarenga, one of the aspects of the stallion side of breeding is the role of cholesterol. Can you just talk to the listeners about what, I guess for lack of a better question, is why is cholesterol so important?
Yes, cholesterol is an important part of the membrane of the sperm. The cholesterol makes the membrane more fluid and the membrane more able to then transfer water and then basically to support the osmotic stress. But the semen is ejaculated, the sperm is the cell that pass to different situations in its life. Sorry. When it's in the testicles and testicle inside of the testicle, there is a lot of fluid, and when it goes out from the testicle and go to the epididymal, there is it's very very concentrated, like a cream, a milky cream. And then when they ejaculate, there is more fluid again. There is a very big challenges for the sperm. A big challenge on the osmotic stress because there is a different osmolarities. And then cholesterol is one part of the membrane that make membrane more resistant to this change on osmolarities. That's very important, no? But they go inside and outside. That's cholesterol that make the membrane to support more resistant to this change. That's one part of the history. And one other thing that's interesting, if you compare the stallion against other species, the amount of cholesterol in the membrane of the stallions is much lesser than the bovine. That's why one bovine, most of the time, they freeze well, they have a very good quality of semen just because they resist better because they have more cholesterol. That's one part of the history. And cholesterol is very important.
So speaking of the membrane and how it relates to cholesterol, what happens when there's too much cholesterol or when there's not enough cholesterol? Can you talk about that?
When there is no cholesterol, the problem is that they are going to have the cell is going to capacitate early, because when you don't have cholesterol with the cold shock, when you cool the semen, there is a problem in the membrane, and there is a damage on the membrane, and the membrane start to lose cholesterol. When they lose cholesterol, there is a problem to survive, and there is a problem also to capacitate and everything else, because everything in the membrane has to be very well conserved to be able not only to move, but not to fertilize also. It has to move to the sperm has to move in the uterus and pass to the papilla It had to have a good motility, pass the papilla, and then go inside of the oviduct. But inside of the oviduct, there's another thing that happens that's very important, that the membrane be normal. That has to bind to the cells from the oviduct. And there is a reservoir from the sperm in there for a while, waiting for the oocyte to ovulate. But during this process of that they still binding the cells of the oviduct, they start to capacitate themselves, the sperms. And then, should the sperm, the membrane is damaged, you can have a problem in the capacitation. And if you lose cholesterol, you are going to have also more damage, because the sperm are going to not be able to support the osmotic stress and other things that happen during the cooling process, by basically the freezing process, basically. That's very important to have cholesterol to protect against this, to preserve the quality of the membrane, the integrity of the membrane. That's one point. But when you put a lot of cholesterol in the egg yolk, there is cholesterol. That's why you use egg yolk to freeze semen. But when you put a lot of cholesterol, you can protect too much, and then you don't have capacity. There is the other side of the history. I don't want to confuse you, but it's important. It's important when the sperm is binding on the cells of the oviduct to have a damage of the membrane. This means cause capacitation, to the calcium goes inside of the cells. But if this capacitation happens before in the uterus, because of the cold shock, because the freezing, because a problem in the membrane, the calcium goes inside before they're supposed to go, and you have a precocious capacitation. Then when you have a precocious capacitation, the sperm doesn't have anymore the ability to bind to the oviduct cells and capacitate themselves naturally. And that's a problem. Has to bind them to have a good capacitation. That's the problem with the frozen semen type. When we inseminate the mares with frozen semen, we have to inseminate just after the ovulation, because the sperm is already capacitated, and then is not able to colonize the oviduct. When you use fresh semen or cooled semen, the membrane is normal. It has less damage. Now, when you freeze, there is more damage in the membrane. The sperm has the ability to colonize the oviduct cells and stay there for a while, waiting the ovulation. That's a good thing that you have. But for the semen, no, you have to inseminate close to ovulation, because the sperm is already capacitated and cannot stay there, bind on the oviduct cells and wait for the oocyte and capacitate themselves. That's why the fertility of frozen semen most of the time is lower than the fertility of cooled and fresh semen. That's why the fertility of fresh semen is always higher than the cooled semen, because there is a damage also when you cool the sperm. The idea is to try to protect in different ways the sperm cells. First, to avoid precocious capacitations, and also you cannot, let's use a lot of cholesterol, but you cannot also avoid the capacitation that's going to happen inside of the oviduct. There's a lot of science to balance the situation, to include cholesterol in the extenders. Just few extenders have cholesterol, because just few people, they could develop something that was able to protect without interfere on the fertility. Then you have to have the balance between the amount of cholesterol and the fertility, the amount of that you can use to not disturb the fertility of the semen.
So then would you say that an older stallion, and maybe you hear this all the time too, but it's like, I have an older stallion that live cover, I can get a mare pregnant, but when I freeze, I can't get a mare pregnant. Is it due to the cholesterol, or what's going on there?
Oh, no. If you freeze, I'll talk about frozen semen. Yes.
Yeah, when they freeze
The fertility.
stallion's sperm, they cannot get pregnant. But if that same stallion does live cover, then they can get a mare pregnant. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, there is a lot of things that you have to consider in this situation. The first thing is amount of the sperm. If you have a stallion that has a lot of pathologies on bad sperms, when you put out the ejaculate, you're going to compensate the situation. That's the first thing that you have to think about. Because the fertility of frozen semen is lower, but it's 20%, 30% lower than the fresh semen most of the time. I know stallions that they have high fertility of frozen semen, but some specific stallions you can have, depends on the situation. But the first thing that when I have a situation, a clinical experience like this, a stallion that have a good pregnancy rate of breeding mares, and no pregnancy, so very low pregnancy rate with frozen semen. I always think that that's related with the morphological problems or even motility problems. We have put in billions of sperm. In the ejaculate, there are 10 billions of sperm in average. And you could inseminate a male, you're going to put 100 million with frozen semen. That's my first preoccupation. That's the amount of sperm that you're putting there. But when you have a stallion that has no fertility with frozen semen and everything is normal in the semen, it's hard to understand what's happened. Normally, the motility is okay, the morphology is okay. And the important part of the motility, the quality of the motility and the velocity. You must have at least 50% of pregnancy rate in average for frozen semen.
Sure. So then, what are some methods that a vet or even a breeder that is having issues with a stallion, is there any way to assess cholesterol levels in the semen?
When you could include the extender with cholesterol to ship the semen or froze the semen, one thing that's important, you cannot, if you remove the seminal plasma, you cannot use the same extender with cholesterol to centrifuge and to suspend because it's too much cholesterol. But if it's a semen that's not going to remove the seminal plasma equilibrates the situation. And the seminal plasma somehow equilibrates the situation. There is no problem if you are going just to dilute the semen without centrifugation to use cholesterol. With the extender that you know the amount of cholesterol there is in there, okay? And it's very safe. But when you are going to centrifuge, we used to indicate to people to use an extender to centrifuge without cholesterol, then to resuspend with the one with the cholesterol. That's the only concern that I have.
Sure. And then as far as, if you know your stallion is probably in need of a little bit of help supplementation-wise, but without talking about products, are there certain ingredients that can help with this issue for stallions?
But talking about to include in the extender or supplementation like feeding the stallion?
Just dietary stuff.
Dietary. No, it's very well proved that it's interesting. L-Carnitine is good even for horse and also for mares because L-Carnitine is going to work in the mitochondria. The mitochondria is the one part, is very important, it's the motor of the stallion. No? Without mitochondria, there is no motility. There is when do you have the damage of the sperm during the preservation, you can have the damage of the membrane, the membrane, and then from the mitochondria that are in the tail of the sperm. Then when there is this problem, you can have the problem the production ATP. And then L-carnitine works protecting the mitochondria against the damage of the sperm can pass during the preservation. That's the first thing that you can use, talking about to stimulate motility, and also is an antioxidant also, that's a good thing for L-carnitine, is to supplement the horse with L-carnitine. But a good amount and a good quality of L-carnitine. You have to use at least 5 to 10 grams a day of L-carnitine. It's kind of expensive, but it's important. Better to give the right amount than give a small amount. It doesn't work, But it's good for both, for mares. Now it's indicated also for mares. The old mares that have the problems developed of the oocyte is related with L-carnitine that they need. It's proved that L-carnitine is one thing that you can use. Another thing that you can include, but is a medication, that's pentoxifylline, but you cannot buy as a supplement because it's a medication. But you can include pentoxifylline on the supplement that you use and give to the stallion if you want to increase also motility. Is a kind of also antioxidant also. It's very important to use this. In my opinion, I like to use L-carnitine as the first option. I need to see if I have a stallion that needs to have a better improve. I use to add also pentoxifylline. And also, other thing that's important on this in feeding stallions is the omega-3. Omega-3 is fat acid that is in the membrane, and they also, like the cholesterol, makes the membrane more resistant to the damage and the oxidation that can pass the membrane during the process of the cooling process or freezing process. That's good, the combination of the two things, the omega-3 and also the L-Carnitine. And it's very important to use at least 5 grams from each one of these, okay? 5 grams a day of L-Carnitine, 5 grams a day of omega-3. One point that's important also, that takes at least 30 days to start to observe the improvement on motility or the ability to survive after freezing or after cooling.
Yeah, one important note that you covered with me at the AAEP conference was that the omega-3s need to be in liquid form. Can you talk about why it's important in liquid form versus in a powder form?
They say just because the oil, no? The oil is better. The one that they make powder, the sort is not the good sort. And the best comes from the oil. And when we use the oil, means that I use the good ones.
Yep, so that's just a good tip for our listeners. If you are buying a supplement and you're looking for that omega-3, if it's in a powder, you bought the wrong supplement. So look for the oil. Are there any research papers that you would recommend to any of our listeners regarding cholesterol supplementation for improved fertility?
There are some articles that were published in several labs about omega-3. There are papers from Texas A&M University that were produced by Dr. Brinsco a long time ago in Texas A&M University. There is paper from Italy, from other countries also talk about L-Carnitine for supplementation and pentoxifilina also. But I can send to you these articles, and you can send for people that want to take a look on these papers.
Perfect. In a perfect world, what would you suggest to somebody that is kind of on the fence? They're not quite sure if cholesterol is what is affecting their stallion. What is a good way to go about testing their stallion?
In my opinion, one thing that's very important in the extender is not only cholesterol. The most important thing is casein. Casein is a milk protein that what is the most important? I think I can talk about the products. Inha 96. Inha 96 is an extender from French that they produce a long time ago, 96 in 1990. That's why I call Inha 96, about more than 30 years ago. And they start to use the casein that time just because they want to remove the milk, because they observe a big variability in the quality of the milk to produce their extenders at that time. And then they decide to purify the milk fraction of the milk that's important as casein. They already knew that casein was important. They don't know that how important was casein. We just realized how important casein that it is there is 10 years ago, that we realized, well, how important is casein, because casein is a protein that protects the sperm against the cold shock and stabilize the membrane also. But casein also protect against the bad proteins that can destabilize or damage the membrane of the sperm. There are in the seminal plasma some proteins. In some extent, they have more of these bad proteins that can destabilize the membrane and damage the membrane. The membrane start to lose cholesterol. Then these two guys, cholesterol and casein, they do a good job when they play together, because that's a good way to protect the sperm. Sometimes the stem has a high level of these proteins that are going to destroy the membrane, and when you decide to put the cholesterol, the membrane is already damaged, and then it continues to be damaged because of these proteins. Then you have to put casein. There is a paper from Canada that showed 10 years ago, 12 years ago, in 2013 or 2014, that the casein binds to these bad proteins, avoid them to bother the membrane of the sperm. But basically, the casein remove these proteins and avoid them to bound the membrane to destroy the membrane. Then we know there is some stallions that they have more these proteins than other, but it's very difficult to measure the concentration of these proteins, the expression of these proteins. But I consider that the casein together with cholesterol are really good. But talking about the problems with cholesterol, the only problem with cholesterol if you remove the seminal plasma. If you are going to remove the seminal plasma, it's important to do what I said before. Don't use 2 times the amount of cholesterol. But we still have stallions that they prefer without cholesterol. 10 to 20%, I think, of the stallions. That's why you have stallions with milk. That's why we have semi like standards that have only casein. But we are developing now a new one with only casein now. So that's going to be in the market soon to be more happy. These guys that don't like cholesterol, they prefer without cholesterol.
And I think it just speaks to the importance of testing your stallion. Don't just reach for the same thing you reached for another stallion. You got to test every stallion to make sure that, hey, this guy likes cholesterol. No, this guy does not like cholesterol. So look for a product or a product line that has those options.
Yeah, we have products that Botu Pharma has, but Semen Gold, but Semen Special, but Semen Special has milk, has no casein, has milk and cholesterol. The Gold has milk, casein, and cholesterol, and the other one, the blue one, the standard formulation has only milk, and we have also one with pentoxifylline that's a Botu Turbo to increase the motility. It's really good. Sometimes if you have a stallion that has a low motility, to resuspend with pentoxifylline, that's going to increase the ATP production from the mitochondria and increase the motility, and then resuspend with another extended. Botu Turbo has no cholesterol, then you can put the other with cholesterol. But you have to play. You have to compare. I always ask people to compare even with INRA 96. Because INRA 96 is very popular because he was the only one that had casein before. And then people just love. But we talk about why we decide to do it in powder. We decide to do our product with casein in powder just because the expiration, the time to expiration, how can I say it?
The shelf life, yeah.
Shelf life. And also because it's easier for the vets to transport and the breeders to transport. And I think that the company IMV, the French, they could not develop one in powder. And we did that, thinking that the shelter life and preservation, etc. But it's very important to compare all of them. We are going to be very surprised with some of them. They change a lot the motility. One thing that's important is also to say that quality of the motility is one thing that's very, very important to be able to evaluate. Also, the container they're going to use to ship the semen. Sometimes you are doing a mistake with the amount of extender, with the kind of extender. You have a 20% lower fertility, decrease on the fertility. You think, okay, just 20%, doesn't matter. 20%, 10 mare that you inseminate is 2-4 or some more, no? That's a lot of money. You have to always to think about it. Increasing 10% sometimes makes a difference, That's very important to think about this. It's very important to think about how to evaluate the motility. I like to evaluate two things. Now, the quality of progressive motility and how long it survives when you incubate 38. When they have a semen that we incubate at water birth and decrease very fast the motility, it's going to have a better fertility. I like the one that survived at 1 hour, keeps around 40-50% of a good motility in water bath at 30 Celsius. That's one thing that I like to use. Also, frozen semen. For frozen semen, what I used to do is just to thaw the semen, evaluate straight the motility. If it's okay, I evaluate 10 minutes after incubation and see if there is a huge decrease of motility. It means that was they had a big damage and the fertility is going to be lower also. And I like it, but with frozen semen, cannot wait 60 minutes. Has to more or less 30 minutes. Have to keep at least 30% or 40% of good progressive motility. Then you are going to have probably a good fertility also. Not only evaluate when you just thaw the semen. It's very important also for cooled semen. And when you're going to evaluate the cooled semen, there's a mistake that people make in Brazil, is to evaluate that which is inside of the pipette is a bad semen. And also they don't warm the semen at least for 3 or 5 minutes. That's very important to recover the motility. And also the shipper that you use, the box that you use to ship the semen, is very important to keep a good temperature inside. It's very important to decrease slowly the motility until 5 Celsius. In the past, when I was in Colorado doing my postdoc, the only way to ship semen was use the Equine. Equine is something that weight, I think, 10 kilograms, huge, big, a blue, I think you know this Equine, but the one that it was the only one that really was good to decrease the motility and the velocity that's supposed to decrease. Because when the semen is at room temperature 20, 25 Celsius, it cannot go fast to 5 Celsius. It has to decrease slowly in 5 or 6 hours until 5 Celsius. Because if you decrease very fast, you are going to have a damage on the membrane. Also, they are going to have a bad fertility. One thing that's important also, sometimes you have good motility and you have low motility because there is a damage on the membrane, and but the motility is still there. Most of the time, when you have a damage on the membrane, you have also a decrease on the motility. But it's very important to protect it since we collect the semen until the preservation, and also to know how to evaluate after when you receive the semen. Normally, when I receive the semen, I take a sample. I just put in the water bath in 2 or 3 ml, using an Eppendorf tube or something like that. And then I evaluate 3 or 4 minutes or 5 minutes after warm, because take time to come back after, because it's cold, you know. There are a lot of people in Brazil, they used to take from the pipette and then warm the plate very fast and take a look.
Yeah, they're not doing it right. Thank you so much, Dr. Alvarenga, for those tips. And it's just good to understand why you're doing it, just not how to do it, right? Because there are a lot of people that will go through the motion because a protocol says it, but they don't really understand exactly why they have to do it and the importance behind it. So I really appreciate the insight there. As always, every time I talk to you, I get a little bit smarter. So I appreciate that as well. You know, do you have any final things that you want to tell the listeners about either cholesterol or stallion management?
Oh, I think for a while, it's fine. I'd like to just to leave my contacts with these people that you can send to them. My pleasure. I use a lot of WhatsApp in Brazil, and I used to that's my wife, and and I used to answer several questions, at least 12 a day. Today I already talked with more than 5 or 6 people asking about stallions, about mares. My pleasure. My passion is to teach, you know. And my passion is to pass to people my experience that I learned with several people from United States, Dr. Squires, Dr. Grant, Dr. McHugh, and several friends that I have in the United States, even Brazil, my boss, Professor Papa. And what I like to do is pass to people what I'm learning, and to help them to have better results with their mares and their stallions. That's my passion. If you need my help, just let me know.
Perfect. I will link all your contact information in the description. And again, thank you so much for sharing your time and your expertise with the field. I know we owe a lot to you. And yeah, if you have any questions or situations that you want to run by Dr. Alvarenga, his information will be in the description. So I thank you again for listening into the EQPOD podcast. And if you have a chance, go ahead and click the subscribe button or the follow button, depending on where you're listening to this. We're always trying to bring you education that'll help you and your program. So stay tuned for more information and all the great guests that we're going to bring to you. Thank you so much.